Good day. Today is August 6, 2024. This is the Rossmoor Board Community Service District. This is a special meeting, not part of our normal agenda. The timing made this very necessary. So can we please have a roll call?
Roll call. Director Shade? Here. Director DeMarco? Here. Director Searles?
Here.
President Maynard?
Here.
And Director Barkey is absent today.
Okay. Director Shade, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was actually on here, Director Searles. I didn't even see that. Sorry about that. You guys plan things out and script things so well, and I went off script. I apologize. So tonight there would be a public forum, but there's no one here. So we're going to jump straight to the matter at hand, Section B1. This is a discussion with the representative from Nationwide Retirement Solutions regarding implementation of the Deferred Compensation Plan. Again, the purpose of tonight is learning. So the outcome of this is not to vote on anything tonight, but to ask questions, to have better understanding. So I believe it's next week on our board meeting, this will be agendized. And again, the importance of us giving up a Tuesday night here is, this is our staff. We all agree that some form of deferred compensation, retirement package is in order, but we don't have all the facts. So, Mr. Mendoza, take it away.
Thank you, President Maynard, members of the board. This is exciting. As you know, we've discussed this for a few years, and very excited for our staff. And thank you for considering the match deferred comp program. And we look forward to answer any questions and make sure that we are above board with anything that you may have in question. Tonight we have with us Amber Peters. She is taking the place of our representative Carrie Avila, and thank you for stepping in, Amber, at the last minute. Carrie was abroad and she had some complications getting home, and I don't know if she's home or not, but either way, Amber has stepped in and she's going to be walking us through the program and answering any questions. We've been with Nationwide since the early 1990s. We have very few employees involved in it. We have some old employees that took advantage of it. They're still drawing off their investments, but we have one employee right now involved, and we're looking to expand that to the other employees. And that one employee is just making contributions on their own behalf. So it is a 457 plan, and Amber can talk to you about the difference between a 457 and 401. I don't think we need to make that step to a 401. I kind of know the in and outs about that, and I mean, if she'll answer any questions with that. But some of the questions that the board had was vesting, was when an employee should be vested, what's the normal period of time that an employee can be vested in order to maybe move on in their career and take their investment or our portion of the investment with them. So I will open it up to Amber and let her do a brief introduction, and then you can ask any questions you might have. Amber? Can you hear me?
Is it only on this TV, not on that one?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, very good.
Okay, thank you so much. So just a quick introduction, and if I don't have an answer tonight, then I will definitely get an answer for you. So thank you for letting me come and join you this evening. My name is Amber Peters. I'm with Nationwide Retirement Solutions. I am down here in Southern California. I live in Temecula, and I've been in this position for about 6-7 years. Out here in Southern California. So I've been a representative in the past, and now I lead our team of representatives in the Southern California territory. I do partner with Carrie at times. She is in a hybrid model. So, always willing to step in and work with her. And Angela Wood, who reached out, she's our plan administrative partner internally. So she also assists with operational processes, IT issues, or questions, and plan admin type of questions. So to begin with, I guess, does anybody have any questions for me to begin with?
Well, right off the bat, that vesting question, like,
Yes.
how long are we going to hold that vesting? How long do the employees have to be with us till they're completely vested and eligible for the program?
Sure. So a couple of different things. The 457 plan, they are 100% vested immediately because it is their contribution. So there is no vesting schedule or timetable for that because it's their contributions that are going in. So immediately invested. And the 457 plan does have different regulations associated with it. So unlike a standard 401k, there is no age restriction. So that means that a participant, let's say they start out when they're 25 years old, they decide to go work for a different entity at age 40. At that point in time, they're 100% vested. Once they separate from service, they have full access to their funds without that 10% penalty that is typically associated with 401ks. There would be taxes associated. It's ordinary income. They could always consolidate to another retirement plan if they go to work somewhere else and another retirement plan is offered, but there are no penalties associated. There's no 10% age restriction penalty associated with a 457. That being said, a 401A is an option for a match, because I do believe that was something that was mentioned is a potential match for employees. And the 401A is kind of the direction that the industry is going in for a match. Just because if, let's say, a participant is putting in $100 a paycheck, or probably more than that. Let's say that they're maxing out at the $23,000 for under age 50 for the calendar year. And then Rossmoor decides to put in a match of $100. Well, the participant can't put in the full $23,000. It would be less whatever Rossmoor put in as the match. If you have a 401A, you could do the match separate from the employee's contributions, and you can have a vesting schedule up to 5 years for the employee. And then that would just be based off of whatever, you all decide the plan document says, whether it's, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 5 years being the maximum. You can do 20% each year, which is typical if there's a vesting schedule. Sometimes it's 100% immediately upon being invested.
So are you saying that a 457, we can match, but it's not really the term match, because then there has to be a proportion of what they're allowed to give and what we're allowed to give. So technically that's not a match.
It's still a match. It's just that it is considered an employee's contribution, because there's no way for us to differentiate and separate the funds. So if you put in $22,000 into your 457 plan with Nationwide, and then Rossmoor put in $1,000 for the total of $23,000, it would all look like the on our system, it would all look like your contribution. So $23,000, it would look like your contribution. And then additionally, you would only be able to put in the $22,000, not the full $23,000, and get that tax deduction of $23,000, because Rossmoor would have put in that additional $1,000 for you.
Okay.
Is that making sense?
Well, kind of. Excuse me, real quick, Amber. This is the first time I've met Amber or even had a conversation with her just right now. But I believe Carolyn and I were talking to Carrie and to Ms. Woods, and I understood it differently. I understood that the 401k, the 401a, moving to that would give us broader ability to make larger contributions.
Yes.
And I don't think we'll ever approach that because we're looking at a small match. So my concern was why move from a 457 to a 401a, since nobody's ever going to max out on their contribution. Is that the only restriction?
So it would really be based off of the individual employees that you have. I mean, if you don't think that any employee of yours would max out their contributions,
Yeah, when you say max out, the max out is like 25,000 or something?
23,000
Yeah.
for those under age 50 for this year. Yeah. And it typically does increase a little bit, year over year. So I think it really just kind of depends on your employee base. So
And
it
that's
would
per
be
year, right? That's per year?
per year.
Yeah.
Yes.
I didn't mean to interrupt again, okay.
Okay.
So Amber, this is Tony DeMarco. So are you familiar with what our plan is? Because, you know, what the plan is, what we're discussing is a 3% match. And right now, based on, for full-time employees, and right now we estimate if everyone took the 3% for the entire year and we matched it, it would be around $10,000 total for all of our employees. So it's a relatively small number, but our concerns were, what we were talking about is this vesting period. When do we start matching, after what time frame the new full-time employee begins, and we had questions last month about how long they will have to, how long they would need to work to be vested here to allow them to take our matching funds if they were to leave, us. Mm-hmm. So, right, that's what we were talking about. So those are the things we want to go over in terms of how we set up that type of plan, because you're going to be administering this, right? Our staff isn't going to do it. You guys we're going to set it up with Nationwide, correct?
Right. So with the 457 plan, if there is a match only into the 457 and not into the 401a, we do not delineate between an employee contribution and an employer contribution. So everything would come over to us as one. So if you were to put in $100 for an employee contribution and $50 as an employer contribution, we would see it for John Doe $150 on, let's say, August 6th, and that would be their contribution. So they would be 100% invested on August 6th when the funds are applied. In your plan document, you can state there's a match, 3%, up to their compensation for the calendar year, and that match will go into the 457 plan. And then on the payroll file that we receive, it would come over with the contribution, but they would be 100% vested once we receive the contribution. So if you wanted to stagger or do a vesting schedule for the employer match, then that would be under the 401a.
Okay, so if we wanted to match and have a vesting, a 457 is not the correct plan. It would be more of a 401k.
A.
A.
401A, sorry.
Yes.
Now, because of 457, as soon as we match it and it gets in their fund, it's in their fund,
Correct.
and we can't pull it back.
You could pull it back. You would have to, your payroll or whoever the contact is, the contact is, would have to tell us, John Doe, social security number, please pull this amount of money
Oh, okay.
back from their account and send it back to us. So there are times where funds have been commingled, and then we just get plan direction saying, hey, for this participant, please pull these funds back.
So, let me just interrupt real fast. In discussing this with Carrie and Ms. Wood, so if we elected to vest, say, for a year, and we were making that contribution after, say, 3 months after a probationary period, so really 9 months or something, and the employee decided to leave, we could request that 9 months of our investment back. We could withhold that.
Yes, I mean, you could, but you'd have to give us a specific dollar amount and do the calculations for us, in which case you wouldn't get any gains or losses back. It would just be that dollar amount.
Yeah, okay.
Or we can elect to go with a 401A, which there's
Yes.
only one employee we're dealing with that's in the 457 right now. So he can transfer his account over, right?
So the 457, I mean, he could transfer it over to the 401A. I'd have to check or have Angela check the plan document to make sure that in-plan rollovers are allowed. But he definitely could do that. The thing with the 401A is that it does have the age restriction associated with it, so he probably would not want to change, depending on when he plans on retiring, would not want to change from the 457 to the 401A.
Are there higher administration costs with a 457 or a 401A?
No, it's the same. We could do the same investment lineup and the same administrative fee.
So the costs are the same regardless of which program we go with, combine
Yes.
or
Yeah.
keep both? Okay. Now I'm looking at, again, you might not know what we have, but we have a participant vesting and forfeitures attachment number 2. And when I'm looking at this, it basically looks like it's all up to us. It's a matter of management, policy, and preference.
Yes.
There is no best practices that you're aware of within government agencies, is there?
So I can only tell you I have done a lot of 401As in the past 2 years as entities are trying to retain employees and, hire new employees. So in my experience, they have been doing an immediate vesting on the 401A.
What kind of vesting? I didn't hear that.
Immediate.
Immediate is, that's what, okay.
Specific to Southern California, within the past year or two. That is what I have been seeing.
And Amber, why do you think that is?
For retention purposes and to get employees to come over to their entities. Prior to, I want to say 2022, I did not see a lot of 401As being started. And then it just all of a sudden, I've had already, I want to say 3 or 4 this year. I had about 4 or 5 last year that started. So different entities, I think, maybe are hearing about, retention efforts and trying to hire new people.
So Amber, let me go over my thought process on what we're kind of talking about, and then you just tell me if we can set this up with Nationwide. So I'm just gonna pick a number. So let's just say our matching every month for employee A is $100. Can we set it up and we hire them in January 1st? And we have a policy where you have to be employed here for 3 months before we start matching. Can we set that up with Nationwide?
Yes.
Okay. And then we have a policy where you have to stay with the RCSD for 12 months. If you don't, then you lose those matching funds. Can we set that up with Nationwide?
Yes.
Okay.
In
So-
both a 401A and a 457?
So the, sorry, I'm just taking some notes real quick. So the 401A, 100%, yes, we can do that. The 457, yes, we can do that with the caveat of if you start to put funds in at the 3-month marker into the 457, and then let's say they leave at 10 months, payroll or again our contact would have to say, for this participant, we need $1,000 from their 457 account back.
Whereas in the
payroll.
401A, how is that different? So compare and contrast the 457 and the 401A in those two, in what you just said about the 457.
So the 457, the employee and the employer contributions would come over as one.
Yeah.
The 401A and the 457 would come over in separate payroll files. So we would see the employee's contribution in the 457, and then the employer, your contribution in the 401A.
And
So we would be able to say, just John Doe has a 401A account, just pull those funds back.
And Amber, why, so just again, can you compare and contrast real quickly the 457 and 401A? It's like, why do people pick 457 and why do people pick, or companies pick 401A?
So the 457, it has a lot to do with the age penalty, the age restriction. So again, 457s don't have the age restriction. With pensions and everything changing over, the past decade or two, police, fire, a lot of people in civil service retire at earlier ages than those in potentially the private sector. So you might see people, I've had participants retire at 46. So you don't want to attach an age restriction to that retirement plan.
Okay, so the 457 has some restrictions?
Has no age restriction.
Has no restrictions?
Yes.
Okay.
No
The
age restrictions.
401A
so as soon as they
does.
leave.
What kind of age restrictions are in a 401A?
So that is age 55 if they are public safety, age 59 and a half if they are general employee.
So at age 55 or 59, they can't participate anymore?
They can. It's just if you take a distribution from it, let's say that you separate at age 49, then if you take a distribution from your 401A, instead of leaving it invested in the retirement plan or consolidating into a new retirement plan, and you just take it and put it in the bank, then there's a 10% penalty in addition to your normal taxes. So it's similar to a 401k.
Now, there aren't any forced distributions by age on a 401A or a 457, are there?
So you can choose to do that if you wanted to. So
I said forced.
Yeah, so you can do, if you haven't contributed, or if your account balance is under 5,000, and you're terminated, then you as the entity could have a force out distribution.
When our employees sign up for this, do you do a one-on-one meeting with them to explain how this works to them and get them to figure out how they want to do it?
So what I would say is that typically, I believe Carrie would be able to, I don't want to speak for her, but I do believe that she would be able to do a virtual session, or I could have one of my reps come and do a session as well, just explaining and going over retirement 457 plans, 401A plans, the difference, and then speak with you specifically about the matching program and the differences between the two.
Is there a preference when you take in the count of the employee versus the preference if it is the district?
Oh, I don't think that there's typically a difference in preference between the two. I guess the only thing that I would say is it can be a little bit more administratively cumbersome if you have only the 457 for a match, and then down the line, I mean, we can always add a 401A in the future. You don't have to add it now. But then we wouldn't be able to pull out the 457 match unless you all gave us the numbers for each individual person. So, and I know that I believe Mr. Mendoza had mentioned that you probably won't have any participants that hit that maximum each year. And I will say that there tends to be very, very few that do hit the maximum. You know, the limit for 50 plus is, I believe, 30,000 this year. And if you're in the 3-year catch up, it's 46,000. So for people to hit that does not happen very often. For those who do, though, they do tend to be the more vocal employees who do tend to get upset about not being able to put in that full amount on their own.
So Amber, from what you're hearing with our policies that we're thinking about, and then the very small matching number, the fact that the 401A, it goes into the account separately, would you say for what we are looking at, it's more manageable, especially if we're thinking about having a policy where you have to be here for a certain number of months? Would it be easier and more manageable? And at the same time, I guess the A is, I don't know. Again, I don't know what the employee is going to feel is better for them. Because, I mean, right now, one person is utilizing one person's using the retirement program. No one else is. So we want to start encouraging it, but we're only talking about matching 3%. So it's a small dollar amount. But we want to make it a minimum of a few months. You have to be here to start it, and then you have to be here for X number of months to capture the money. So hearing all of this, what would you recommend? The 401A over the 457?
So without providing any advice, what I will say is that administratively, it would be easier for a 401A and a 457 to have them side by side.
And again, you're not giving anybody tax advice. That's exactly what I'm asking. Administration to administer.
Yes, administratively, it would be easier for payroll.
Okay.
And for you all to have that vesting schedule and to administer it and pull funds back potentially if that need arises, to have the 401A and the 457. Because again, otherwise, the payroll would have to, or again, whoever our contact is would have to calculate out, pay cycle by pay cycle, the amount that went into the participant's account, and then tally that all up and then ask for it back. And then you also run into the issue, if they do separate, they have access to their funds in the 457. So we can, if they take the distribution, there's the possibility that that money can't be pulled back because they've already taken a distribution of their funds.
Amber, if I may, in the beginning of my report, I mentioned that I would like to stay with the 457 because we had an employee in there. But the way I was explaining, I think you're hitting it right on the head, is the employees would be in the 457 and we would be in a 401, right?
Yes.
And then the other question I had was, just to clarify, say, we're talking, everybody's talking recession right now, and say that the board goes, oh, our reserves are dipping low and all this stuff. We can put a halt to the 401 anytime and then start it up again, correct?
So there is language, I don't know if Carrie or Angela sent it to you in the sales kit or the form that requests a 401A.
Yep.
But there is language in there where it can be at the discretion of the entity.
Yes, okay.
So we could also do a one lump contribution. So we could put it on the calendar that every November on the agenda, closed session, we approve the amount that we can give.
Or you can halt for 6 months because,
I like the idea of just one lump, based on the end of we're in the middle of, not in the middle, but we know what we've done, we know where we're going, budget-wise, we know how we stand. But and again, I might only be the voice who says that, but
No,
still,
but
having the ability to either do it by payroll check, or the ability to stop, or the ability to do it in lump fund.
Yeah.
And if a 401A provides that flexibility for management, or in this case, this board, that provides a more flexible tool.
What comes to mind, Michael, is when we receive our property tax money. So certainly if we put
It's
it,
April, isn't it?
what's the 2 months where we get our, April?
April's the biggie.
Okay, I mean, I'm sure we can do it, because, again, our max out is like around 10,000, so. But that's an interesting, I hadn't thought, just the lump sum, that's interesting.
It's corporate, that's what
Yeah.
we do in corporate.
I mean,
so.
The only thing with that is, someone's gonna have to go back and look at, here, we got 5 employees, how much did employee 1, 2, 3 contribute? Okay, so someone's gonna pull it's gonna be, labor, someone's going to have to look at it. How much did you contribute this last cycle, right?
We'll
and-
always be tied to a calendar year, because that's
Okay, so
taxing
for the
laws.
last 12
Yeah,
months, how much has the employee contributed? And let's just say they contributed, 5,000, okay, which is well over the 3%. So you're going to have to, there's going to have to be an accounting
Right.
of that. Whereas if you do it monthly, you tell Nationwide it's a max 3%. So it's the ceiling is this much, and you set it all up. It's in motion where there's just a max, and they do it all. They do the calculation. I don't know how Amber, how do you set up that fee where you put it into? Is it set up through ADP, or is it set up through you guys? The distribution on our end, that calculation.
So we have, we can do it 2 different ways, and this is a little bit out of my expertise because it's more on the technology side. But there are 2 different ways that we have things. There's a file feed that we can do, and then ACH as well for the contributions and the funds. So we would get this file feed that's online, and it's you can access it every day, that has the participant's name, social, and dollar amount. And then when the ACH comes through, then we would just match that up with that file feed.
That's the other thing. So what is?
And I know that we do work with ADP, and there are a couple of other different payroll systems that we work with as well.
Is there you said the word fee, right?
Feed, sorry, with a D, feed.
F-E-E.
File feed.
D.
Oh. Okay. Speaking of fees,
Yes.
is there a fee to do this from Nationwide?
It's just the normal administrative fee I'm sorry, I don't know it off the top of my head. Whatever you're currently at with the 457 plan, we could mirror with the 401A.
Okay, so Mr. Mendoza, I'd like to know that fee, even if it's like $1, I'd just like to know the fee. Is the fee, again, you don't have to tell me the dollar amount, but is the fee on the transaction? So every month we do 5 transactions with Nationwide through 5 employees, or once a year we do 5 transactions. Would one be more than the other?
So it's not based off of transactions. It's just an administrative fee that, and it's not that it's paid by the entity either, it's by the participant. So there is an administrative fee that the participants pay to be in the plan.
So it's a flat rate.
Okay, so there's,
Paid for by district staff, not by us. Okay.
Paid for by the, the participants.
okay.
So is there a world where we would have 401As for anybody signing up now and still maintain the 457 for the existing staffer?
Yep, that is typical. And actually, in potentially expanding on, your employees' retirement and assisting them, having the 401A match could potentially then lead to, more accounts in the 457 plan.
Yeah, and you can have different, like, we hire somebody that has a existing Roth IRA, they can come in and open a 401A, and and they can have a 457. It's just we're going to be funding the 401A, right? Okay.
Yep.
But if they had, let's say we hired an employee who had an existing 457, we would still be able to help them out with the 457, and in a sense, we would have both, and it would be a staffer decision of which one they want.
Yep, they would just have to, so then let's say that, I'm working for the city of San Diego, and I put in $15,000. I start with Rossmoor in June, and, you offer the 457 and the 401A. So the 401A match is completely separate. If it's just the match, we won't go over that limit based off of the numbers and the figures that you've provided. For the 457, then it's up to me as the employee and the participant and the individual with the tax ID to not go over the 457 limit for the year. So then I would only be able to contribute another, $8,000 to the Rossmoor 457 for the year.
Okay. So now I'm hearing, Amber, that we could have employees that have 457s or 401As.
Yes, you could have both.
Okay. So, and with the 457s, if we're going to have a policy where you have to stay X number of months, it's going to be harder to administer that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, so it's just like if you're working for, I don't know, if you're working for Google and you have a 401k, but then you also have an outside IRA, it's just like that, except for it's under one house. So you have a 401A and a 457. It's just housed in, at Nationwide.
The only issue
under
for
one
us
area.
is if the employee leaves and they're not fully vested.
Well, if that's
Yeah.
the big deal, that's the only issue.
That's the only issue.
You'd have to go in and,
You let the employee make the decision of which one works for them. It's their decision, buyer beware. Or we limit that. Again, all these discussions are really going to, at the end of the day, be policy. What policy do we as a board want to make? Do we want to have both? Do we want to have one? Do we want to force the hand of, no, you will transfer to a 401A? What is the vesting? It really is up to us.
Again,
It's not up to Nationwide.
no, it is, but you can still keep your 457. We're not going to, if we have the policy where we only contribute to a 401A.
That could be a policy, yeah.
That could be a policy. You can still contribute to your 457. We're only going to match a 401A. So they would open up a 401A, and then they would, it's the same thing. The only thing is there are certain restrictions on these funds, these 401Ks, As, 457s, just like she was saying about, Amber was saying about, you can start drawing off it at 49. You must draw on it off this age. So there's, it gets complicated, and they change over time. You know, they change.
Yes. With the DOL, it's definitely changing constantly.
Yeah.
But in Carrie would keep you updated on, you know, the Secure 2.0 and the DOL regulations and how the legislature is changing things. But yeah, most plans that have a 401A also do it in tandem with a 457.
One more time, I didn't.
Say that again?
Most plans with the 401A do it in tandem with the 457. So like, as you were saying, as a match, then they also have a 457 because again, without the age restriction, it's nice for participants if they choose to open a 457 up.
So, Amber, the district gives you the parameters, whether it's a 457 or a 401A, and we say it's a 3% match. And your program figures it out to where our accountant, I mean, we're going to check it, I would imagine, but it's already, on your end, you set that up to where the maximum is only going to be this 3%, whatever that number is based on what they make, right?
So we would not know that. We only take the payroll file from you and the funds from you because we don't know what your employees get paid. So you as the employer would send us the 3%. Because we can't pull money from a check.
Yeah, they're not paid.
So,
Okay, so then it would be ADP that we would.
And they do this all the time.
So,
yes.
again, I don't know if I'm
So
clear on.
corporately, the scenario that, just so you know that my perspective here, I'm hoping it's the same. My company, we do 401ks, and we define it, we then write it off in our taxes and do all of that, but we have until September of October the following year to fund it. Is it something like that, where the employee puts in the money, they do everything, and at the end of the year, we have a certain amount of time to fund their 401k?
It depends on what you as the entity puts as your fiscal year.
Okay.
So most do, you know, January 1 to December 31st. Some do July 1st through June 30th. But that is what it is based off of. And then on your W-2s for the employees, you know, there would be a spot that shows how much goes in for that year or how much went in for that year.
Yeah, and you just rely on your ADP report to pick that up.
So again, reminder, we're coming up with policy. We're not blocking and tackling.
No,
You
but
have to mentally do some blocking and
Understand,
tackling.
I completely understand,
Yeah.
I agree.
But we
It's-
also need to get ADP.
My concern is, my only concern is like oversight. It's like, so what's the simplest program that gives our employees the benefit that is the least amount of oversight? Not the least, but you know what I mean. I don't want it to be this, I mean, if it's literally, hey, it takes me an hour, let's just say it's, like you said, November, you know, it takes our accountant, you know, just give me the reports for the last 12 months on all of our full-time employees, how much did they contribute, figure out what the 3% is, did they contribute more than that or less than that? Here, the employee one, we owe this, we owe this, we owe this, we fund it in November. Okay, or July. Or we just do it on a monthly. Yes.
Sorry, may I ask, when you say a match, is the 3% match against what they would be putting into their retirement account, or is it against their compensation?
What they put into the retirement account.
Okay, so then they would really then have to have a 457
No,
plan.
no, it's not what they put in. No, it's 3% gross. What's the 3% off of?
The maximum number is 3% of their compensation.
Okay.
But,
Okay.
so, you know, if Joe puts in his 3% is $500, then we would match $500. If Joe puts in 1,000 and 3% is 500, we'd only put 500 in.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
So one more time. So someone's compensation, I'm just going to do easy math. They make $10,000 a year. And that means 3% of 10,000 is what we would match as a pool if they participated.
As a max.
As
So
a
if that
max.
person puts in $300, which is 3% of 10,000, then we would put in $300 to match it. If they put in 500, we would only put in 300 because the
$300
max
to
is 3%.
But if they put in 1%, we would.
We would only match to 1%. Yes.
Okay.
So then, sorry, so you're matching not their compensation, but what they are putting into.
Correct, up to 3% of their compensation.
No, we're matching the compensation, not what they're putting
You
in.
guys are saying two different things.
Yeah.
I think you're saying the same thing in a roundabout way.
It sounded different.
It does.
Say it again.
So we are matching what they put in up to 3% of their compensation.
So there is a ceiling of what the district puts in its match. And that ceiling is defined as 3% of their total compensation.
Correct.
Okay,
Whatever they contribute.
okay.
And that's on a yearly basis, right?
Yes, I would think so. Or is it based on monthly income? It depends on how we set this up and execute it.
Correct.
However,
But then they would also have to contribute.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, okay,
But they could contribute more. We're.
right.
Yeah.
Only up to the 3%
Yeah,
ceiling,
we're only
okay,
up to 3%.
of their compensation, okay.
Carolyn has a point, if you would.
We talked about how the match would be on gross earnings, no overtime. So we won't want to use the phrase total compensation, I
Yeah,
don't think.
it's
Thank you, Carolyn.
Base salary.
base salary.
off of base salary. Okay.
I don't know if it's, well, the 457 and the 401A, again, Joe, I don't know how difficult it's going to be to manage it. And then do we do it at a lump sum and, you know, during one part of the year, or do we do it monthly?
I would prefer monthly, and from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, Amber, the district would be in a 401A, and the employee could be in the 457, and we would just match it.
Yes,
Okay, so we would only be contributing to a 401A.
Yeah. And by saying that, that's going to be the incentive, oh, I guess I should sign up for the 401A. That's
Well,
what we
they're
get.
going to
I
have,
get
so,
free money.
but wait a minute, Joe, you just, so their matching fund goes into their 457, we match it in a 401A? Is that what you just said? Okay, so
And-
you
and-
keep,
And it combines, right, for them to get interest on it? It's not separate, is it? Like, we're not putting, say, $300 or $100 a month into a 401A, and they're putting $100 a month into a 457. That would be defeating its purpose, because you're going to have two funds, and they're not going to draw as much interest.
Well,
Why
the
wouldn't
funds
they?
then go into an investment pool of the employee's choice.
yeah.
right, so the investments could be the same between the 457 and the 401A. They would be held separately because one has the tax code of a 401A and the other has the tax code of the 457. But let's say that they were both in, you know, invested in target date fund 2030. So whatever return rate of the 2030 would be matched to both then, if they were invested that way. And then they could also be invested separately.
So we're not talking about how it's invested, we're only talking about the fund. Okay,
Basically transfers.
yeah, but
Yeah.
we're not talking about where it's invested. It's coming over in a 401A, and they're tracking it as a 401A. So you got this money you can use this way, this money you can use that way. But it's all invested in the same
In the same.
portfolio.
And that's one thing we haven't even asked is, does Nationwide actually provide the financial products that the employees choose from?
So we have a couple of proprietary funds. I believe your plan has the fixed account or a stable value account, but they are not all proprietary to Nationwide. So we do have a multitude of different funds, which I can actually look up if you give me just a second.
I just want to make sure the employee has a robust portfolio to choose from, an option.
Yes.
I think so. I think we're all realizing this is really up to us. It's,
But this
you
was
know,
a good, this was a good call. I mean, we kind of vetted some of this confusing.
Joe, do you have any questions?
No, not at all.
Carolyn, do you have any questions?
No, I've actually administered 401K plans in my history, so I know that sitting down to reconcile numbers for 5 employees is not going to take very long, once a
Yeah.
month. So I wouldn't worry about that too much.
We've done a few within my business, and basically, I hate to say this, but that's what my wife does. And she does it once a year.
Yeah.
And we do the once a year of, okay, what can we do, what can't we do?
If we
And
had
it's-
50 employees, it would be different.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
But you have to plan for, the policies we make now are not just for the 5 people we have.
Yeah.
It's for whatever it's going to look like 20 years from now. So,
And
again,
again, the policy could be changed based on changes in the law or changes in,
Yeah.
you know, the 401A is not that.
looks like Tarquin's going to say something.
Oh,
I'm just preparing the mic in case I'm asked.
I was going to ask, did you have any questions
preparing his mic.
It's not going to work anyway.
of Amber?
Any more questions?
Testing.
Yes.
Hey, it works. So I have no direct questions. I'm familiar with the legal underpinnings from an public employment standpoint regarding the plan, so I'm happy to answer any legal questions.
Okay.
Okay.
All
Amber,
right.
we would like to thank you
Perfect.
for your time.
Thank you. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, to Angela, to Carrie. I'll also send them a recap just so that they, know what we discussed tonight. And then they can send you any of the paperwork that you might have questions on so that you can see. We don't send out, example, so to speak, but we can send you the sales kit that would ask for and have the information in it if you haven't already received it.
Let's get everything, because this is going to be on our board meeting. Joe, do you think that this can be on a board item next week?
Yeah.
Okay. Give Joe everything you think he needs.
Yep. Thank you, Amber.
All right. Thank you so much. Everybody have a great night.
Thank you, Amber.
Thank you, Amber.
Thank you.
I'm going to call for an 8-minute recess. We will start probably at 8 minutes.
Just 8 minutes.
Okay, 7 minutes.
Why
No.
do we need to adjourn?
A bio break,
Just what more do we have?
Oh, well,
discussion, and what we want
yeah.
are,
Okay.
The 3,
What do we
the
wanna
12.
implement?
yeah.
Okay,
So-
I thought maybe this was going into the meeting for next week, that we would actually discuss the actual
No, we have a
outcome.
special meeting
Okay.
now, so
All right, that's fine.
I'm calling
You
for
have
a
break.
quick little break.
Okay, got it.
Calling this meeting back to order. Subject is our deferred comp plan, if that's the right term. So we've listened to Nationwide. What I get from the materials that were presented and what we discuss is everything is basically a policy that's up to this board. There are some best practices currently in Southern California specifically. Most people are offering 401A with immediate vesting. That doesn't necessarily mean that's what this board should do, but that is a point that did come out of our conversation. For this meeting, I would love for us to guide our general manager. Everyone put things on the table where their heart is, where they think we should be going with this, and see if we can have something come back to us with the proper direction of our general manager for our meeting next Tuesday, a week from today. I'll open up the floor, whoever wants to start.
Okay, I think that I like the idea of us giving the option. We only have one guy that's doing the 457 right now, so, and I know, we are thinking about the future, but I think of even in the future, we have 5 now, we'll have 6 or 7, maybe, 20 years down the road. So, it's minimal at best, and I think the management of this is completely manageable. So offering the 401A to our current employees would be the way to go.
And your opinion on vesting?
Pardon me?
Your opinion in vesting, what you think the
with
ideal
the
vesting period would be?
With the vesting, I know we want to put like a time limit on it. I'm open to whatever. I'm not, I'm open if you want to put a time frame on it, but I like the idea of it being immediate. I think it's a good selling point. I think our staff that we have here, our guys are basically, when we lose them from here, where do they go? If we lose them, where do they go? They go to like city, like our parks guys. Where do they go? They end up going to the city. So I think us being comparable with that, I'm not saying at that level, but just offering something, if they're immediate, that would be probably something we should think about. Well, if they offer it immediately with the city, if the option is coming here, going there, whatever, or staying with us, I think it's I'm fine with immediate or putting a time frame on it. I'm flexible on that. Doesn't matter to me.
Flexible on that?
Yeah.
Okay. Tony?
Okay, so currently all of our full-time qualify, right? Okay, so I think it's, a worthwhile benefit it's not a lot of money that we're talking about. They can contribute a lot. They can contribute more. But what Mr. Mendoza is, it opens the door to some of our employees that don't have any retirement, right? So it is good to just the overall education. You know what, you should put money away for your retirement. And here, we're going to do this small matching 401A, and I think it should be the 401A. So I think it's a good benefit. If we're going to have a vesting period, and I wrote down over 6 months, okay? Could be a year, could be 8 months, whatever. But if you're going to be here 6 months to a year or whatever our vesting period, then it should start immediate, because you got to stay here X number of months to get it. So why wouldn't it start at the very beginning, right? So if a new employee full-time comes in and after 2 months leaves, they're not going to get anything. Okay, so really it should start at the very beginning.
That in itself is a vesting policy, though, which is good.
Okay, so I would say if we just really, in my opinion, how long do you have to be here to be vested? So we just need to come up with the recommendation from staff, and we just need to, so That's, yeah, it's not, if Mr. Mendoza recommends every paycheck and it's manageable, okay, do every paycheck. Probably easier that way than all at once. It's not a whole bunch of money, it's through the 3%.
And it's not a lot of employees. My recollection is we all agreed that all current employees who have been here for a year are immediately vested.
Okay,
That's my recollection. Does everyone remember that the same way?
Yes.
Nod of heads?
yeah. I recollect that.
I
Again,
recollect that,
we can, is there any full-time? So everyone qualifies, so it's, my recollection is, we're talking about new full-time.
Right.
Yeah.
New
okay.
hire policy.
New hire policy.
Right.
Because everyone's going to be vested already.
Everyone who's been here a year. We're
Correct.
drawing that once you're
Yep.
here, you're vested. Okay.
Yeah, so that's it. We need to come up with that vesting. We already came up 3%. I think we're all in agreement. 3% is reasonable and good. 401A, I think that's the right program, the right account or
Plan.
plan to choose. So it's the vesting period. So.
Okay. Director Searles.
Yeah, I would support a 1 year for the matching to vest, and I would
For new
encourage.
hires?
Well, I mean, it would be for all employees. It's just that the current employees would already be eligible because
Okay.
they've already served their year.
All right.
The second part being, when does the match take place? I would say I agree with Director DeMarco that it be becoming immediate. And the reason I support that is because if I am trying to encourage people to do it from day one, I want them to know there is that 3% waiting on the end. If I am told that 6 to 9 months from now the board might change whether the match is going to happen or not, I'm less likely to participate initially. So that's why I think you put it up front. It's back
Good
to
incentive.
you're a government entity. You make a promise at the beginning and you just hold on to it, and that's easier. It's easier for us to budget. We know what our obligations are, and we're not waffling about it. We should have the reserves necessary for that in our budget, and if we don't, we need to check our priorities or plan for the year going forward after that. But that would be, and I think that's simple, right? That's the 457 for the employee participant. It's the 401A for us and our matching side. I don't think there should be much discussion other than the wording.
Okay. I think we're all in agreement. Mr.
Definitely.
Mendoza, do you think you have enough to have this prepared and ready for,
Tuesday.
no,
Yeah.
this is a policy. This is a 2-reading thing. I think that's why we wanted to have this meeting, to get these 2 readings under, or is this just an approval next Tuesday?
So
Come on, get the microphone up. Stay with us.
I'm here, I'm back. Okay. So my understanding that this is not a first reading, this was just hear the presentation and discuss.
Well, no, I know tonight's not a first reading.
Right.
But this will go through 2 readings, a reading and then a vote?
Yes, if it's going
Okay.
into the policy, we'll go through reading and vote.
I believe we've already had a reading. We agreed on the 3% match.
Mm-hmm.
And we approved the budget,
Without this, though.
yeah, without this.
Yeah.
So this could be.
So now you, so are in.
No,
what-
I think we approved the budget with it.
with it,
Yeah.
and we're going to have to, if we change it, we're going to have start another reading.
If the policy is being amended to include the vesting, then yes, that requires another reading.
We'll start over again.
Correct. Unless the board determines to introduce and adopt as amended in one reading, which the board can do in their discretion.
Okay. In the agenda is this policy with highlights. This is what we read and first reading in July.
Correct.
So let's get
This
reacquainted.
says employees will be immediately vested in the employer match. As part of the budget planning process, the board will conduct an annual audit of the plan and maintain the ability to spend the matching portion of the plan. Excuse me. So,
But then there's a 90-day,
probation period.
yeah.
And you guys.
Well,
you want to do it immediately.
Yeah, I mean, now that we kind of get the whole story on this, it should start, if you're gonna, if it's 1 year, you have to be vested.
Well, no, see, excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
But-
The following a successful 90-day probation period, eligible employees enrolled in the deferred comp plan will begin to receive a 3% match.
They have to get past probation.
Following the
So,
success.
so if you're new, we start matching after 90 days, or the board can elect to amend that and make it immediate. And that's what I think I heard. Is that right, Director Cyril?
Yeah, I mean, that's what
Well, again, it's there, so I get the probational period, okay? So forget about the retirement program, probational period, hey, it didn't work out. Even though we matched for 3 months, they're not going to get it because they didn't hit the 12 months. So we would take that out,
Yeah.
right?
So that 90-day doesn't-
it's irrelevant.
Yes.
I mean, unless we want to have, hey, for 3 months, but to your point, hey, you know, we're going to match you on day one. Now, to keep it, you have to work here for 12 months, right? Okay.
And that can be in the employee agreement versus our deferred compensation policy, right? Tarquin?
We don't really have an agreement, yeah.
I'm not aware of an agreement, since these are at-will employees.
What? I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
Thank you, President DeMarco. I'm not aware of an agreement that you're referring to.
Oh, do we have an employee agreement? We don't, okay.
Only the general manager has a contract.
Everybody else is at will.
We don't have an employee handbook?
Yeah.
We do
It
have that.
does not include an agreement with it for this.
Yeah.
Is,
So is that just something you can come up with, Tarquin?
Well, I would suggest not having an agreement, because that could potentially change the nature of at-will employment. I would suggest memorializing it either in the policy or another board-approved document that goes with this program. I mean, it could be, you know, we have the materials from our service provider, and we can include this as part of the program materials, the guidelines, the rules for the program.
So it would just be included?
That is an option.
So what I heard Tarquin to say was 2160.41 deferred matching program. If we amended that at the next board meeting, we can adopt it in one hearing.
And the 90-day.
we could adopt that in one hearing?
Yes.
I thought we'd have to,
No, the board retains the board retains the power under the policies governing procedure to introduce and adopt in one reading if the board so chooses.
okay.
Typically, we don't do it that way, but it has been done and it can be done.
So there's 2 sentences in here. The following a successful 90-day probational period, and employees will be immediately vested in the employee match. So those 2 sentences, if they are reworded, one removed, or just changed, if we make those 2, it's pretty much, we don't have to, do we have to state that's going to be a 401A?
No.
Okay. Yeah, so all we have to, so
Eliminate?
from what I'm hearing right now, we agree there's no minimum, okay? You have to vest for 12 years, 12 months to get, to
Right.
get the year. So all we need to do is, I believe, just change those, rework those two sentences, and this is good. And Tarquin, you're telling me that even with these changes, we don't have to start from scratch on the entire budget?
Not
In
budget.
terms of read?
In terms of the policy,
Right.
no, we'll just, at the next meeting, it'll even be in the agenda report, recommended to revise the policy by combining the first and second reading.
Okay.
I would offer one suggestion, and that would be again, we would strike the sentence that begins following a successful 90 days, to strike that entire sentence. And the next sentence to say, after 12 consecutive months of employment. So it's not cumulative
Right.
12 months, but it's consecutive 12 months, so that you don't have a 6-month hire who's been gone for 2 months and then come back for 3 months. And it's got to be a consecutive period where they're not,
12
taking,
consecutive.
yeah.
So,
Can you finish that sentence?
So it would say after 12 consecutive months of employment, employees will be vested in the employer match.
And then add 12-month period.
We could add full-time employment, 12
Yeah,
months of full-time
yeah,
employment.
being that they're the only ones qualified to participate at all, but yeah.
Overtime not included. Okay.
Yeah, so right, Tara Coyne, after 12 consecutive months of full-time employment, yeah.
Full-time.
Is vested.
immediately vested.
Is
Oh, no,
vest-
you
it's
already
just
have
a-
it. It's already
it's
said.
vested in the employer match.
An employer match, yes.
Yeah, you don't want to say immediately because it's,
Yep.
it's understood by the preceding clause.
Okay.
All right, sounds good.
Are you good, Joe?
Yes.
Okay. Well, gentlemen,
It answered
Joe?
a bunch of questions, so. All right. Anything
our
else?
agenda, we don't.
Bam, bam, bam.
Bam, bam, bam. Guys, I call this meeting adjourned. Thank you for coming in
Okay.
on an extra
Thank
day.
you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.